focus on what is at base. So I give him a lot of credit. It's a little short book because I think he looked across. I'm going to ask Kenn to come up in just a minute because it was just peace. And remember the Sunday I first mentioned it, it was the last Mideastern war was raging, so I was having in my mind this just war theory. How do you be more humane when you're killing people? But I realized he uses the word just as only or the whole, and surely the subtitle, a prescription for holistic peace. So one of those dualities, one of those false choices that exist is this whole idea of war and peace. Are we constantly struggling, or are we seeking that wholeness that brings us into peace? So Ken, I had a couple, 3 questions if you want to come up. If I've rephrased them, it doesn't throw you a hope. So this is the text, just peace. I have mentioned Ben Booth. Ben's good at looking across, surveying connections. I think Ken invites us to go deep. And the depth, and remember, has to do with this. Is there another way of bringing things together than dualisms which tend to put us in opposition? So the questions I have center on this idea of a triad, 3. The writing I'm trying to get a chance to bring to maybe education is, I call it in the classroom, divide by 3. Don't tell me whether you like it or you don't like it. Don't tell me whether it's good or it's bad. Divide by 3. Find 3 aspects and go from that. And so in the course of my appreciating just peace, it's your prescription for mindfulness, awareness, which one? Okay. It occurred to me that today's scripture is getting us into what we call a non-judgmental place. Not so much because we need to be right or wrong, but because it destroys us to be in a position of constantly judging. And so, given this election season, I thought we would talk a little bit about how your work with the ancients, those folks have been writing and thinking deep, long time ago. Some of the scriptures he refers to come to us. They're even earlier than the earliest Old Testament scriptures. And their stories have been passed on forward. One of them, Zarathustra, had a habit of, and it notices in 3s, and I like this. He had a habit of saying good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And it is a little prescriptive. Of course, James is a little prescriptive. And it's kind of a just do it. You know, Cheryl, you gave me a name of himself, how he wants to work. When I phoned him, I left a message, but his voicemail continued, or his announcement on his voicemail said, "If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything." You know, so it's. But I think this is an expression of wholeness that comes to us, and what are your reactions to this spirit in some of these ancients?
Sure, absolutely. I would like to start off, Pastor Travis, by thanking you for the opportunity to dialogue on the subject. That's something I'm very passionate about. Thank you to those of you who have read or at least portions of the book and given me very positive feedback. I appreciate that. So when the very simple paradigm that Zarathustra presents, and this is, of course, before this is the Mesopotamian era, previous to the Abrahamic religions that emerged, and through Israel and Jacob, that good thoughts, good words, good deeds, we try to keep things as simple as possible in their message so they don't get skewed or misinterpreted. We just try to keep it as simple as possible. You'll find these same teachings throughout most of the faith traditions, the peace traditions, because they are so simple. And if we will take the effort to to approach them from that view, then it helps to bring simplicity to our lives as well. And when we think of them that way, of course, it's hard to simplify our lives because there are so many things coming at us, so many variables, so many outside agents working toward, for, and against us at all times. And so we have to weigh the benefit to our own personal evolution of those things on a case-by-case basis. For good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And the question you had originally proposed to me, and I had written some things down to help collect thoughts on the specific angle that you're kind of coming from on these questions. And the question it stated, is there anyone in contemporary society anywhere we can look for the practice of this good thoughts, good words, good deeds? The ancients, Jesus included, cautioned us, instructed us that God has given us everything we need within us to make those judgments. Truth can be found through intuition, which is God's own spirit in us, which speaks to us. Truth can be found through nature, which is the gift of God to us, which embraces us. It's all around us, if we'll just be aware of it. Any of you who garden or work in plant life or raise your own vegetable gardens, who like to commune with nature, see God in every aspect of nature and wisdom in every aspect of nature. That's directly how God physically speaks to us, is through nature. And so when you pull yourself out of nature, whenever you spend all of your time either indoors or away from God's creation, that wisdom, there's a chasm between you and God's wisdom. And so he encourages us, all the ancients encourages us to spend time in nature. Jesus' favorite place to pray was in the garden, and that's where you can commune. And the third way to truth is through God's gift to us as higher thinking beings, and that through culture and the great masterpieces or intuitions of the best of us, of the geniuses of our kind. The reason we are encouraged, the ancients encourage us to look to these masterpieces, is that the geniuses who founded these works were in touch with the mind of God, with the conscious, the cosmic stream of thought and consciousness, which is the mind of God, and that they touched some aspect of that. And whenever we study paintings or literature or music or anything that we consider to be of a genius nature, that those symbols and words and writings, letters, even the patterns within them, help put us in sync, if you will, with the mind of the genius who created it, and by extension, the mind of God. And so whenever you spend time listening to the beautiful works of music, or reading the great works of literature, or looking at the great paintings and sculptures of man, that's another conduit toward wisdom. Those three things together help us to find God, help us to find truth, help us to find peace. And you'll find if you'll spend time meditating or contemplating the God within you at your center, with the life of God, the fire of God that was placed within you, and you spend time in nature, and you spend time enjoying and studying the beautiful creations that mankind has been able to produce, that you'll find your life automatically starts to become more peaceful. And it's almost miraculous, if you will, how that works. And it's really just a prescription, but it comes back to good thoughts, good words, good deeds. So my thought on, where do we go to find it is really I would be cautious in that. That's giving trust to people and organizations which are flawed because they're of man, right? That's intrinsic to them. We are flawed, and we're all works in progress. So to be looking outside of yourself for God's wisdom in other people and other organizations can be dangerous, can be, we're cautioned to approach it with a sense of open eyes and open spirit, and we do that through our knowledge of intuition, nature, and the great works of man of the past. Whenever you're looking to others, the reason we tend to look at the ancients is because those teachings are time-tested, right? You're talking about 2,000 to 6,000 or more years ago. We're looking all the way back to Enoch and to the great prophets. Those are thousands of years of wisdom. And if that wisdom is still standing up, then it's, as the Apostle Paul says in Philippians, if it's true, and if it's honorable, and if it's commendable, and if it is worthy of praise, and these things you should meditate on, right? But that's based on your own intuition, which God gave each of us. So combined with nature and with the highest works of mankind, that's how we garner truth around us. And we can find that within ourselves. You can look outside of yourself, but you have to do it with an open eye and with your own platform of intuition and works of nature and man and your communion. The more you commune with God, with nature and where He's found, the more wisdom you'll have to discern these things. And it helps if there's some time tested in the teachings that you're espousing to, right? If there's some test of time, as opposed to even my own book, which was just published in July. I'm a contemporary author, a contemporary philosopher, if you will. I would say don't trust my works either. I would give it 2,000 years, and then maybe it'll work out, right? So all I can do is do that as well, right? And that's where that comes from. So trust is one thing, love is another. Please love everyone, but you don't have to give your trust away that easily, right? Be wise, be loving, be wise. That's the key.
So my orientation is kind of sociological, and of course you're philosophical, but your thoughts about the great achievements, the creations that people have. I really like that. One of my kind of dreams is to really elevate the arts in worship, to really spend some time getting into them. And they're not going to say the same thing they were like, but they'll be speaking to us. So if you'll indulge my analytic part, though, you speak in your book of the whole, or of being constituted of body, emotions, and mind. There's a little handout if you have it handy from your bulletin, because there's some different configurations of these, and I want to spend a little time with them because we have somebody who really works with it. Adopted, we split the greatest offender, flesh and spirit have nothing to do with one another. But if you take it as a balance, we are whole because we are flesh. Now, there's no mind in that. If you look at the other two lists, there's the mind. But remember, the people who came to give us the Bible were released from captivity from Egypt. And we know from the funeral practices of the Egyptians, they thought the heart was what they thought with. So they really had not much use for the mind. So body in this triad, flesh, body, spirit, body is really the equivalent of the mind. It's that living, processing part. And of course, spirit in this construct comes from above. You talk about finding it built in, but so I like the other. Now the classical arrangement is body, mind, and soul, and that also is a bit unfortunate because I don't know if you've seen movies like What Dreams May Come. It's this old idea of the soul is pre-existent. It appears in this body here, another body later on, and so it really has a divinity of its own. That's not the same thing as spirit. But to you, look to the Eastern basis, body, mind, and emotions. So just being a little bit analytical, how does that work for you across these three divisions?
Well, I would start by saying that in those three separate philosophies that you presented and their breakdown of what I call in the book the Holy Trinity of Self, we are holy because we're God's creations. We don't treat ourselves as holy all the time, and so that's a problem. I think God sees that as a problem as well. And that of the three, what we have the most direct control over are to the extent we do, is our body, which is what we eat, the amount of exercise we get, our exposure to nature. All right, our emotions, which is we are charged with creating joy, love, and peace in ourselves and around ourselves. We are in our mind. We are tasked with holding only the highest thoughts. Trying to have the thoughts of God, or God's thoughts. Right? over time. These are nuances of the same basic idea of who and what we are. From a philosophical perspective, you are, I could go further. In the book, I presented 3 aspects, but really, the teachings, according to the teachings of the ancients, you are spirit. That's what you are. You have a body, you have emotions, you have a mind, but you are spirit, which is the eternal part of you, right? That's what will live on forever. And so that's the ultimate goal, is for us to nurture our spirit. And we do that through our body, through our emotions, and through our mind. And part of our personal evolution is how, even through the Lord's Prayer, we talk about our treatment of other people, how we treat others. So it's our mindfulness of what we truly are, which is spirit, and our body and our emotions and our mind are a tool toward our own personal evolution, and we work towards perfecting those to be perfect as God is perfect. That's our task, that's our goal, and it takes your entire life to even get anywhere close, if you ever do, right? But it's the process that's important. We're not tasked with being perfect, but working toward perfection. And I think that's referenced numerous times in Scripture as well. We're working toward perfection. You are spirit, so technically you are one, but you're also two. You're two because you are your lower self and your higher self. Your lower self is the physical part of you, the part which is rooted in the material world. Your higher self is the part of you which is rooted in the immaterial world, thoughts, and the parts of your emotions which are tied to thoughts. And that goes beyond further to that you're 3 within your spirit, like an atom holding its electron, neutron, protons, right? That's the same analogy. You think of an atom as being one thing, but there's also the components within it, right? So, and that's what we are as well. That's when we talk about body, emotions, and mind. But you're also 7, and these are the paths of peace, as taught by the ancients. And you're also 12, which is the Hebrew interjection of the aspects of who we are, and has to do with the different parts within us. According to Buddhist traditions, you're also 7 in the forms of chakras, and then which are just variations on the 12 of the Hebrews. They're all very related, right? It's just aspects of who you are, parts of who you are. You are also everything, and at the same time you are nothing. And what I mean by nothing is that you are no thing. If you are spirit, then you are not a thing, right? You are consubstantial with God. You are consubstantial with all of creation. And if you will approach it, even if you struggle with that concept of being one with everything, which we've heard before, right? And that's a very Eastern philosophy. But if you will act in that way, then you also treat others around you, nature around you, the possessions that you do have, right, with care and with sanctity and with respect, and because you are intrinsically part of everything around you. You know, the ancients taught that any harm you inflict on any other thing, you inflict on yourself, because we are tied together, and that is not just a philosophical thing. I like to study the sciences, which is how I got to a lot of my assertions in the book, specifically physics and quantum physics. And the current state of the art in quantum physics is that there is just one field, and that within that field are fluctuations, congregations of energies within the field, and that's all we are, is vibrations. All anything is vibrations. And within you, you have a spectrum, and this addresses directly the 3 different philosophies that you're talking about. Within us is a spectrum of frequencies. You're not just one frequency. As a matter of fact, as a music major, and as someone who did my doctorate in phonetic composition, which I had to do lots of spectral analysis, and I used the voice. I'd have someone speak into a recording, and I would take 30 seconds of the recording and turn it into a 30-minute symphony. And I would do that by analyzing the spectrum, not what they said, but the things that happen within their voice. We have evolved over time to see our world in a way that we can help us survive it, right? And the same happens with your ears, specifically in this context, because if you could hear my voice for what it was actually doing, I'll back up to saying, if you could see the world as it actually physically is, you wouldn't be able to handle, it's like trying to use your computer and all you see is the matrix of numbers, right? You don't know what to do with that. So we put it into an interactive format where you have an icon and you have an app, right? We can use those things. And that's how our world works, is that we can use these symbols within our world. That you are a series, a spectrum of frequencies. And your densest frequencies are your physical manifestation. And your least dense, or the highest frequencies, are the thoughts, your thoughts which can commune with God, because He's of the highest nature as well. So this is not a metaphorical situation. It is literally in the sciences. Whenever I'm studying the spectrums of someone's voice, what I see is not one single line. We hear one voice, right? We hear one tone, if you will. But if you could hear actually and I'm going to make a sound, may startle you here a little bit, right? If you could hear what someone's voice actually sounds like, not interpreted by our ears, just objectively, it would be a plethora of sounds, because you have super low fundamentals and you have overtones that extend into, not kidding, infinity, right? And that's, you hear the lower frequencies and you process that into words and language, but the upper frequencies speak to us in much more detailed contextual information. This is how you know how to interpret the same sentence read 5 different ways, right? It's the expression of the tone, and it's the overtones within that. It's how you can tell who you're talking to if you're across the house and someone says your name and you can't see them. Well, how do you know which family member it is? Well, you've learned over time and mannerisms, but in their voice, if it's 5 different strangers, you can tell that there are 5 different people talking to you, because the tone, the color of the voice is different, because the hierarchy of their spectrum is different. It's a real physical thing. So when we talk about who we are and what we are, if you'll think of yourself as being one with everything, one, you're going to act a lot better, you're going to treat things a lot better, as opposed to I'm a thing and you are something else, which comes back to the Essene image. If that doesn't really exist in science, it doesn't exist. You are fluctuations within the field, and the field is one, and the one is God, right? So that's, I could talk, and I'm going to start, so I'm going to back off a little bit and try to keep it simple.
Well, I'd like to explore various meanings of perfection, because we get in a lot of trouble trying to be perfect. But let me ask you what word best kind of represents putting perfection together. Is it simplicity? Is it mindfulness? Is it the detection of harmony?
Okay.
That's a trick question. I didn't ask that.
Well, right. Well, and a lot of times, when you ask a question, we are gifted with perspective. That's what our fluctuation in the field gets to have, and it's a blessing from God, right? As part of our personal evolution. So whenever you talk about what one word, the 3 words that you threw out there are great one words, but they apply to different aspects. When you say simplicity, that's a function, right? It's how you act, it's what you do. Simplicity, and our best examples of simplicity, especially in the Christian paradigm, are God and Jesus. God is the one law. The one law. I think about everything that manifests in our universe. It's based on one law. And Einstein chased it, right? And they still chase it. They're looking for one law that directs everything. We're searching for God, is what that is, through science. So the one God is the one law. He's of one mind and of one will. That's God. The best example we have of simplicity, right? And Jesus, which is manifested carnally into human form, for us as a representation to us, as an example to us. You think about in the Scripture, not just simplicity is material and it's immaterial. Materially, think about Jesus, or that phrase we like to use some years ago, what would Jesus do, right? He had the most meager of wardrobes. They wore their sandals, he wore his sandals until they were flip-flops, basically, and then he would trade them out for new ones and wear them out, right? That he was austere in his actions. He was austere in his wardrobe. He was austere in his living situation. He was austere in the number of friends that he kept. And you may think, well, aren't we supposed to, in extend our lives through friendships. Yes, but how many friends do you have on Facebook, and how many do you actually know and talk to? I mean, I have been guilty of having hundreds of friends on Facebook until I started to apply simplicity in my life. I'm like, who do I actually talk to? And I had to whittle that down. I got down to dozens, and then eventually I got rid of my social media entirely because all the people I really cared about were my phone contacts, and I would just call them, right? So and those are degrees of simplicity. So simplicity is a function of your life. We also talk about simplicity, and I'll use Jesus as the perfect example. The things, and of course they didn't document every word that Jesus said, but the things which have come to us about what Jesus said are as austere as you can produce as human beings and still function. His words were few, and they were very powerful, right? His words were few. His speaking was austere. His offerings were austere. He was sincere in his offerings to people, and what he offered was very meaningful and very personal to the people. And he connected. So we talk about simplicity, and what's the benefit of simplicity? Of having fewer things, of having fewer possessions, of having fewer foods we select from, fewer everything. Simplicity in your life. What does it allow you? Well, if you accumulate things, materially and immaterially, things require maintenance. And the more maintenance you have in your life, the more things you have in your life, the more time and attention it takes from you. And the more time and attention are given to your accumulations, you only have a finite amount of it. So how much are you giving to the people in your life? How much time do you have just to sit and listen, to have a meaningful conversation? But we're so busy. We're so busy. And we all say this. How are you doing? Oh, I'm dead, I'm tired. Right? And we all do this, right? And why is that? So it's part of our culture, and I think part of our goal in life is to accumulate things. When peace is found in the simplicity and the austerity, and it takes a real strength to be able to do that. That's a beautiful word, simplicity, toward peace. It is the center stripe, as I say in the book, toward the path of peace. So if you can start there, then everything else will come to you in abundance. Now, I like that word. I could go on with other words, but that's okay.
So, just a word or two from a paragraph you have in your book. It's about Jesus. And I still got my tree out going. He says Jesus taught compassion, love, and acceptance. And you put all those things together in the simplicity of his words. And I think we indeed have the wholeness. And the scripture says, have the mind in you that was in Christ. And that's so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pastor Travis. And thank you.
Close with just a word about Ben.